Now, the government's set to bring forward Jennie's Law this week, legislation that would establish a public register of people convicted of serious domestic violence offences, named in memory of Jennifer Poole. The law is designed to help people make safer decisions in relationships by allowing access to information about past convictions. However, it raises important questions around privacy, victim safety and how effectively such measures can prevent domestic abuse. To discuss all of this, I'm joined now by the Director of Services with Clare Haven, Siobhán O'Connor. Siobhán, good morning to you and thanks very much for being with us.
Morning, Alan. How are you?
Very well. Talk to us a bit about the register. Delighted to see that it's going to come forward, the legislation, this week. The aim, of course, to allow people to check whether a current or prospective partner has serious domestic violence convictions. I did mention that it raises important questions around privacy and victim safety. Do you have concerns around those issues?
Well, we would, to answer your question immediately, we'd always have concerns about any changes in legislation until we see the actual detail. And as I always say, the devil is always in the detail. And it's when we see the actual legislation and the actual wording of the act, we will know more. But in the meantime, we are very grateful to the Poole family in Finglas. They went through a horrific experience with the death of their sister cum daughter, and the amount of campaigning and fighting and work they had to do to get this through. It was incredible. You know, they couldn't just mourn and be bereaved. They then, you know, for the benefit of future women in the country, they took up the mantle and fought hard to get this piece of legislation through, or not through yet, but at least to the table in the Oireachtas. So we are really grateful for them for all the work we have done. You did name there, it's for people, it's a record of serious crimes and convictions, and that's going to be one of those little bits of detail that we'd be interested in. How is the word serious defined? Who is defining it? And who decides whether something is serious or not serious before it can be considered? So, I mean, there's one of the little, very teeny tiny pieces of maybe not concerned, but you know, something we'd be watching out for and how these things are defined. It's one word in a big piece of legislation, but that word could have an impact on the outcome of the register. Yeah,
which I did want to ask you about, and whether you feel there needs to be serious clarity on what serious means, because some critics have argued that many perpetrators of domestic abuse are never convicted, but also, and whether that limits the effectiveness of a register like this. But if it is only for serious offences, what counts as a serious offence, and how many people will not be catalogued or highlighted if they've done something terrible, but it isn't categorised as being serious, and that just neuters the legislation and if it becomes law.
Yeah, and I mean, not to undermine it, anything at all, even if it is the most serious, at least those people will be named. So I wouldn't undermine it completely. Every little teeny tiny step is worthwhile to take, but we would be very concerned about that. And as you named there, so many, no more than any of the domestic, with sexual, gender-based violence, so many of the crimes that are committed day to day, hour to hour, are not even reported to the guards. Those that are reported to the guards don't necessarily go through the DPP. Those that do go through the DPP don't necessarily go into court, and those that do get into court don't necessarily have an outcome that the victim would see as being adequate. So then when we have to put an extra layer on it, and by giving it different kind of a hierarchy, is it a serious or is it a not so serious? Is it a lesser serious? How exactly? That is a question. How will that be defined? And the limited information will also, because the register it's very limited based on what we've read about it. We don't actually know what's going to be in it yet, but it's very limited, the information that's going to be out there. So even if it is a serious crime, well, because we don't know yet how that is defined, we don't know yet what that means. So therefore, are we not naming within that limited piece of information something that we would all want our mothers, daughters, sisters, aunts to know about a potential life partner before they enter into a relationship, that it just will be kept away from us because it hasn't been deemed serious by whomever makes that determination.
Jennie's law, Siobhán, as you know, has similarities with Clare's law in the UK, which allows police to disclose information about a partner's history of abusive behaviour. Are there any lessons that we here in Ireland can learn from the British experience in terms of Jennie's law? Because research would suggest that Clare's law has actually helped people make informed decisions about their safety. Is that encouraging evidence for a similar approach here?
Well, we would absolutely see it as being people being forewarned is forearmed. So people having any information at all is incredibly important, and we can learn from the experience of the UK. We're very lucky here in Clare. We have me in Clare Haven anyway, and also I imagine the people of Clare have a really good relationship with An Garda Síochána. So we can trust in their information that they're giving us. We can trust that they will take this on board because they have been very proactive in their work around domestic abuse. I can't speak for other areas of the country. I can't speak for individual members. So how much power is being invested in maybe somebody who's just trying to do his job and trying to be fair, or trying to do her job and trying to be fair, and in the information that they will share when the time comes. And we must be very careful of that. It puts extra pressure on them, but it also puts extra pressure on victims because there is a potential that the name of the perpetrator could be publicised. Victims are already put under serious pressure from the perpetrators, from their perpetrators' families, from their maybe wider circle or church circle or whatever, not to proceed. So this is going to be another piece of another pressure that would be put on maybe the victim not to proceed, not to go ahead, because we unfortunately in this country, and not just this country, pretty much around the world, if we look at the news every day, we're always trying to protect perpetrators. We're always saying, oh, well, we can't impact on their lives, we can't impact on their future careers, and things like that. So the work of the UK and the work of the police in the UK, we have learned a lot from, but we have to realise that Ireland is a much smaller country population-wise, and that will have an impact with regards to the work of the local guard in the local area and what work he can do or she can do, despite the really positive relationship that we think victims in the general have with the guards in Clare.
Obviously, we hope Jennie's law makes a huge difference on its own, but do you feel it needs to be buttressed with a wider package of supports and prevention measures? I'm thinking of, the likes of Operation Devise, guard intervention measures, those kind of initiatives to just back it up, to make it, help it out.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, the guards' intervention and the work on the ground that they do is hugely important. But again, this is a reaction, this piece of legislation, as fantastic as the work as the Poole family have done, this is a reaction. Somebody has to have committed the crime. The crime has to have gone through. So somebody has had to get hurt in order for this information to get out there about this person. As I said, so many of these crimes don't get to court. So there's a lot more work we need to do, in the first instance of the crime being committed, around removal of perpetrators away from their targets, around all of those interventions, but preventative measures that are needed, because, reactive measures serve a purpose, of course they do, but it does need something awful to happen first. And that, of course, is always where our commentary is, that we need to stop these things from happening, not just, in retrospect, try and, assuage some of the worst effects of it.
OK, we do have to leave it there. But before I let you go, Siobhán, if anyone needs to contact Clare Haven for any reason, how can they get in touch?
So our helpline is 065 6822 435. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week helpline. There'll always be somebody at the other end of the phone. If you'd rather not do that, we have got through our social media and through our email, clientcare at clarehaven.ie, and people can contact us. They can contact anonymously, they can give it their details. It's completely at the pace of the person looking for assistance and support. And if anybody just wants information, we're happy to share any information that we have or refer you on to the relevant service. OK, we always appreciate you joining us on such important matters. The Director of Services with Clare Haven, Siobhán O'Connor, thank you very much for joining us on Morning Focus.